In my last video, I told you who I was. Now, I want to explain what I do. I explain where I've been. Now, it's time to show you where I am. I think a lot of who we are is made up of our habits and our routine. What we become is simply a culmination of how we spend our time. If I'm really gonna show you what I'm about, I'm gonna have to show you what I do. So let's start from the beginning. Honestly, I couldn't remember a day that didn't start with coffee. Now, studies show that it's best to wait about 2 hours before you first have caffeine. Now, I'm not one to argue with science, but for me, it's less about the caffeine. More importantly, it's the start of my routine.
If you don't have a cinematic coffee sequence, are you really a YouTuber? First off, thank you to everybody that showed love on the last video. It really gave me the motivation to make this next video. There's so many different things in that video that I actually see that I wish I could do differently. I had been sitting on that project for quite a while, and I was letting just a few small things hold me up from putting it out. After a certain amount of time, I started to ask myself, am I being a perfectionist? Or am I just being self-conscious? Well, you see, my life and my brain are kind of like a game of ping pong. I tend to bounce around a little bit, and on any given day, I may have a completely new title. One day I might be an audio engineer, one day I might be a producer, maybe a photographer, a videographer. Some days I'm an interior decorator. And I'll be honest, it is frustrating at times. What I need to do isn't always exactly what I want to do. However, in order for the right side of my brain to operate properly, I need to make sure I nurture the left side as well. I'm a very habitual person, but I found that my habits tend to serve my creativity. I try my best to stack small wins throughout the day so it builds the momentum, so that way it's a lot easier to move from one task to the next. I've found that small increases over time can compound into profound growth a lot of times more effectively than maybe doing something one time for an extended period of time. One of the new things that I had picked up in 2024 was actually starting to take piano lessons. And my teacher tells me it's a lot more effective to practice 15 minutes every single day than to practice for 2 hours for one day. So starting small and building over time actually increases your chances of actually staying consistent with whatever you're doing. And I've found more times than not, you'll actually end up retaining and learning the information a lot better. Anybody that's taken a test before knows what it's like to cram the night before, and then by the end of the week, they don't remember any of the stuff that they studied. You don't get to enjoy the harvest when you plant the seed. Which leads me to the next part of my day. Bruce Lee said, "I fear not the man that practices 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man that practices one kick 10,000 times." Focus, determination, persistence. The gym and life share a lot of resemblance. But I'm not here to pitch you on getting ripped. I don't really train too heavy, and there's plenty of days that I'm inconsistent. See, the thing is, things take time to manifest. You can't lift heavy one time and get diesel. You gotta show up, time and time again, day in, day out. Then you also need supplemental information. You need to learn more about nutrition. You need to learn about recovery. I mean, you have to learn more about yourself. And this ends up creating a foundation to a domino effect in your life. When you eat better, you sleep better. You sleep better, you think better. You make better choices. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And honestly, beyond all that, we are nothing without our health. That is, in my opinion, true wealth. A healthy man wants many things. A sick man only wants one. All right, so next we're gonna head to another spot that I call home, and that's Tater Baseball. They're a company out of Cheshire, Connecticut, and they specialize in just about anything baseball. Apparel, wood bats, training bats, gear, you name it, they're a one-stop shop. And it just happens to be owned by two of my closest friends, Jeremiah and Freddie Vargas. So let's make it happen. And this is where I spend part of my week as their creative director. I live right here at this desk, and I spend a lot of time downstairs shooting videos. So together we brainstorm, write, and shoot content. And when you're a relatively small to medium-sized company, a lot of times you have to wear several hats to be able to hit your goals. So if you have any intention of turning your small business into a large one, you're gonna need a team. This leads me to a very important part of creative thinking, and that's collaboration. If you wanna go quick, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go together. Let's make one last stop. And here we are. Once again, At the studio. Growing up as a teenager in my early 20s, this was one of my biggest goals. I've always wanted a place that I was able to create, be as loud as I wanted to, and do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. We're going on a little over 4 years now, but even to this day, it's still pretty surreal to me that this is my job and I get to come in here to work. But I gotta say, man, it took a lot to get here, for sure. I'm always trying to find new ways to better myself or take it to the next level and just be better than I was the day before. As we go through life and we accomplish goals and then have desires for new ones, I think a lot of times we take things for granted, and as the saying goes, you don't really know what you're missing until it's gone. So before we had the studio here, the studio was actually just my bedroom. The typical first home studio, foam all over the walls, closets became booths. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit it, but I had actually taken apart my bed frame and I was just sleeping on a mattress on the floor. And to give context, I was trying to move it around to make room for the audio stuff. What ended up happening is it was like an IKEA bed that had been years old at that point, and it just broke. And then after that, I was just in too deep, so I was like, you know what? Let's do it. I was a little bit embarrassed by it, but at the same time, it was oddly motivating. And let me just take the time to shout out my mother, because she definitely had to go through a lot. The bass shaking the house at 2 in the morning. I always knew that I was gonna need a space in order to be able to take it to that next level. But another important part of that was just having a larger focus group. I could work with different artists, I could work with different genres. Making more money allowed me to buy better gear. And to keep it simple, I was able to just get a lot more practice in a lot less time. And then eventually, when you have enough repetition, you start to notice patterns. And then from there, you get a clearer picture on how you want to run your business. Do we need rules? We like this, we love this, we hate this. So essentially, if you want to grow your business, you have to grow as a person. So to give a little bit more context into what I actually do here, I'm the audio engineer. Essentially, that's the guy that's recording the artist, not to be confused with a producer, which I also am. A producer is typically gonna make the production, the beats, the instrumental that the artist is singing or rapping on. An engineer is kind of the guy that puts everything together in a sense and makes it all fit and sound good and get it ready to be consumed by the listener. And then of course I do video work as well. And then here we do a lot of music videos, reels, social media stuff, and then obviously any freelance work that I may do. So one of the benefits to knowing all those things is a lot of times they're gonna work together. And as you learn information in the various different fields, a lot of times they play into one another. And then eventually you can get to a really cool point where you can make music or make an instrumental and you're already thinking about how the visuals are gonna go, how the marketing is gonna go, what the promotion is gonna be like. And eventually you develop your own ecosystem of sorts. And then we also do things like events, podcasts, merchandise, stickers, shirts, hoodies, you name it. And then recently we started incorporating rugs, which is awesome. So yeah, I'm a creative, a jack of all trades, a master of none. All right, last but not least, we're about to head home. Day's not over yet. This is where I'm gonna get the majority of my deep work done. So let's go.
Okay. Finally back at HQ for the night. This is definitely the least rigid part of my day. This time's gonna usually be dependent on how the rest of my day went. I have a tough time relaxing. I don't know, I've always just kind of felt like guilty about it since I was young. So I spend a lot of this time doing like industry related reading or watching videos or things like that. This could be a movie from my favorite director, or even for example, the Rolling Stone website actually has the top 100 TV shows of all time. And I've just been going through those and knocking them out. That was one of the things that actually got me to watch The Sopranos after hearing about it for so many years, and that ended up being my favorite TV show of all time. But this last month or so, I've probably been watching more YouTube than anything. I've also been watching a lot of Twitch, because it's something we've been doing at the studio, so I've been just trying to watch as much as I can, kind of just like learn the ins and outs and get the blueprint for it. But I'll be honest too, there's plenty of nights that I come home and I just want to turn my brain off completely. Or, to use another term from my mother, vegging out. So really, this could be anything that just gives your brain a break. Anything that just makes you present and solely focus on what it is that you're doing. One of my personal favorite ways to do it, video games. So I've always been a pretty big fan of RPG games. My freshman year of high school was the year that Skyrim came out. That winter break, I don't think I really left my room ever unless I was going to use the bathroom and make some food. I definitely made a lot of iron daggers in those 2 weeks. But naturally, as you get older, you have more responsibilities and you have less time. But that love for RPG games really translated into my adult life. And I think what ended up happening was I had to turn my life into my own RPG game. Health, wealth, entertainment, community, and throughout these 4 pillars, just a way for me to scale and mark and study and track my progress. Things like business and tracking your finances. For your health, using things like a Whoop or an Apple Watch. Being creative, making videos, making music. I almost kind of feel like it's your duty or your obligation to do the things that you're good at and continually get better,
and put that back out into the ecosystem, into the marketplace, and give back to the world. I also believe it's a way of being grateful for those that came before and investing in the people that come after, which is kind of what got me into things like this, making video journals, and as a way to give myself a metric and track my progress throughout the years. If there's one thing that I love about video games and life as a whole, is just progress and growth and trying to just continually be better than you were the day before. But I hope you enjoyed the second part of our series. I told you who I am, I told you what I do. Next, I'm just gonna have to tell you why I do what I do. As always, a like, comment, subscribe goes such a long way, and I really do appreciate you guys tuning in and showing some love, and definitely look forward to more videos in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for this one. I hope to see you next time. Adios.